Hey, everybody, welcome to the People, Purpose, and Profits Business Coaching Podcast. I'm Brian Buck, and my wonderful co host is.
And I'm Kat.
And this show is all about you, the small to medium sized business owner. You might have between 500 and 500 employees, or you're a solopreneur or a coach. You might be a coach or a consultant. We're here to give you some ways of thinking and some behaviors that you could put into place so you can increase the impact in your business. And so today we are going to talk about delegating. And one of my favorite concepts, it's a new book. I haven't read it yet, but I get the concept, which is who, not how, which is it isn't thinking about how to do something, but who can help you. You want to kick us off about delegation?
Yeah, I think one of the hardest things, especially for solopreneurs, is loosening the reins on what they have to do and, hiring the help that they need, especially if you want to grow. When we first start out, it's understandable that we kind of want to have our hands in everything and we want to know everything. And I actually suggest that people do learn and know the best they can something, but at a certain level you're going to have to find someone else who does it better rather than you trying to master every aspect of your business. And one of them, and I constantly talk about this, is marketing, because for me, I struggled a lot with it. I just hated it, and it almost made me walk away from my business because I thought I had to be a genius at marketing. And, I learned through like several trainings that it's much better to hire someone who knows what they're doing. But it was really, really important for me to know what to expect of them. So the fact that I knew how marketing is supposed to go and what are the pieces and whatnot helped me keep tabs on it. And that's exactly what we'll talk about today.
Yeah, I learned a very similar lesson from Jim Edwards, who I really like his copywriting stuff. It was even if you delegate or hire someone to do your marketing or your copy specifically, you want to know enough about copywriting to be able to tell if it's good or bad. And says often when you hire someone, they're going to give you a really good first draft. And sometimes you need to take the ball the rest of the way. And that, for me, I think is a real key differentiator because I don't have to create the copy from scratch, but I know how to edit it because I know my customers really well.
Agreed.
And so I definitely think there is that piece on we need to know it enough so we can recognize it and have expectations and also be able to know how to specifically apply it as well. Do you want to share the accounting story that made us think of this topic?
Yeah. I was actually doing an interview, and the lady who was I was interviewing, she had been an entrepreneur for over 40 years. And she said that the bookkeeping was the worst part of the business, and she neglected it to the point where she got in trouble. And I can't remember exactly. I want to think of like the expression that she said, but it was like really painful.
Hmm.
The metaphor she used when it came to how much she hated the accounting, like it was really bad. And over the years, she ended up getting a coach who helped her understand that she needs to know a little bit about what she's doing as far as accounting goes, because even if she were like even when she did hire someone, she needed to know what to expect of them. She needed to be able to tell whether or not they were doing a good jobs and if her business was in good standing. So
Hmm.
I think it's crucial. Like it's not enough to say, like, I'm gonna pass this on to my accountant, or someone to do my bookkeeping, and at the end of the year you're looking and like nothing makes sense, or
Yeah.
nothing was accounted for.
Yeah, I can't imagine the IRS letting you off the hook if the accountant did something wrong. So you might be able to have some kind of legal recourse, but yeah, you're exactly right. Like you need to be able to understand all of that stuff. No, it's so important. And, when I also think about delegating, and you brought up is, when you start to build your team and one of the things I found is entrepreneurs are oftentimes really good creators, and they know what they know their service, they know what the customers need, they might be really good at sales and all of that stuff, but they also haven't always had training in how to be a leader of people. And so that's one of the pieces I love to be able to help on. And, what are the few things you can do to really engage your team? And delegation is important for that. There Oftentimes people think delegation is like hiring someone. I want you to go and do this and come out with that. That is a piece sometimes, but true delegation is where you also give delegation of decision making and
Ooh, that's
trust.
hard. Mm-mm.
What's that?
I said that's
Right.
hard.
Yeah. And, it doesn't mean you're going to do that with a brand new hire. I can't remember. It might be Netflix. Um, some big company I remember reading a long time ago was uh, empowering people to make financial decisions going, um, how would your leaders make this decision? And that was all they had to do, is just say, how would, so if you truly empower someone to be able to make a decision, you as the founder, have you really made sure your decision making and your thoughts are really clear? And a good way of thinking about this is when I was in the corporate world, one of my very first jobs was a little customer service team. And where we sat was, um, whenever someone would call their sales rep, they would go to us first, because usually people would just say, hey, can you write off this package, or can you change my rates? And we used to be a kind of like a pass through. Hey, thanks for your information. Then we would send to the team to figure out all this. Like, okay, can they not? One of the things I led in that team was, well, what's that decision making process? Can you equip us to change rates to the next level, or can we write up to, I think that time was $300? If you can just empower us with that, then we could be able to serve customers the first time without having to put them on hold or wait. And so by understanding that decision making process to be able to make the customers happy, we were able to do more to make the customers happy, and we didn't have to pay the expense of having other people involved in doing that. And so you as a founder, be really clear, like, you might even start with a five. You can make decision up to $500 or up to 1,000. Our friend Brian Williams, who we interviewed, he talks about, I think, the Four Seasons. you know any employee can spend up to $2,000, I think, to be able to make someone happy, and without asking or approvals. That is true delegation, focusing on serving your customers and serving them well and memorable. And so that is really critical, when you think about how to delegate when you have a team, and or even when you're hiring a marketing person, like you were saying.
Mhm.
Sometimes we're hiring marketing people that definitely know more than we do. So what does it take for us to trust their advice?
And that's a great starting point. And thinking on how to be effective is asking those type of questions. Is what does it take for you to hand over the reins, and how much control do you want to have over that?
Mm.
Because if you're constantly sitting there every day asking them what they did and how they did it, yes, we do want to review, yes, we do want to look at growth, yes, we do want to do all those things, but they can be done in a very effective way, not sitting there and pestering and butting into their job, and then causing them more stress, and then causing them to lose focus, and at the end of the week blaming them for what's coming up short.
Yeah. I also think this comes down to openness to mistakes. And oftentimes we control because we're fearful. and we're fearful of mistakes usually.
Mhm.
So, but we all know, because we made many mistakes. Have you made any mistakes at all, Kat?
No, none.
Yeah,
I
I know.
told you I'm perfect.
Right, right. So I make mistakes all the time, which means I learn all the time. And so part of delegating authority and it's something to someone is recognize they're probably going to make mistakes as well. Obviously, you want to think about your, you might not empower someone to make $100,000 cost purchasing decision because that would be a huge risk, but you can empower them to make maybe a $2,000 expense decision.
Maybe that's
And if
true.
they'd made that and it was wrong and it didn't help the customer or create a problem, you could still learn and recover from that. And that person will be better with that support that you have.
Mhm. And also, in delegating, it's important to look at work ethics of the person. Because if you have someone who's constantly coming up with excuses and they're doing a subpar, work, then you definitely don't want to, release a lot of decision making power, right? you
Yeah.
you you want to understand where things have to go, and then decide who can make the best of that particular job.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and we should do a whole nother episode someday on hiring because that is true. But I would also say if you have someone who's doing a subpar job, um, look at your leadership. Maybe you haven't equipped them or given expectations clear enough so they can be
Mm.
successful. And so sometimes that's one of the things I coach a lot is the power of self-responsibility of a leader, that even when your team makes mistakes, it clearly seems like it's them, as you say, what did I do as a leader to create that condition? And how can I improve? I remember working with once again in my corporate job, and one of my peer managers was really upset at our scheduling person. This scheduling person weren't doing this, and it created all these problems. And she should know better, is what she kept saying. As when have you told her this expectation? Never, but she should know. She doesn't have a mind. She's coming from a completely different, if you go through the assumption that everyone's doing their best, and they just maybe need a little more clarification on what you expect, and you get that commitment from people, then if she continues to make the mistakes, okay, maybe there's a problem there. But so often we like to say, oh, this person's just not a good worker. Well, until you as a leader have said, here's what I need from you, we don't want to make that call yet. We might not delegate as much, but we start to see these are the opportunities to be able to make that better, pull someone in there, help bring out people's best.
Right. And how much more powerful would that be to understand, that it starts with you, and that, like you said, if the person isn't doing a good enough job, that maybe you haven't set the right perimeters for them and the right expectations. Because often enough, and I've done this mistake several times, I'll take responsibility, which is something we talked about, prior. It's really important because if I am in the habit of putting the blame on other people, that will make me very skeptical to trust other people
Mm-hmm.
to do a good job. And I'm going to do a really bad job communicating to them what I need. And it's all in the mindset.
Yep. And the beauty of self responsibility is we always know we have full capability and control over changing and improving ourselves. We
Right.
could stop being the lid on performance in our team through that. So if we're getting poor quality, we can increase our ability to lead better quality.
What do you think are some signs maybe that we can look for or watch out for in hiring or delegating work?
Um, One is, are people behaving according to your values? Have you made your values clear in what they mean. Like earlier before this show, we had a great conversation on so many organizations have respect as a value, but respect can mean lots of different things.
Hmm.
For me, respect means everyone has a equal voice in the success of serving customers. Other people think respect is you follow my orders unquestioningly. So, what does your values really mean? What do those behaviors look like? So, I think you want to look for evidence of those values. Where have you treated people with respect? Tell me a story. Tell me where you have behaved in an innovative way. So by hearing those stories, or when you do your background checks, you would look for those. So I think from a hiring perspective, and then similarly is before you delegate, you want to delegate to people who are living those values. And by the way, if your team hasn't really clarified your values, that's something we love to do, is work with teams, is let's get those out there. Let's get them out of our heads and into something that people can actually begin to use as their North Star. And that is a drastic change in your business. And it's going to affect your hiring. It's going to affect who you delegate to. And it's going to also be really clear about what your customers can experience.
Something that really helped me make good decisions when it came to delegating some of the work was actually seeing initiative and seeing people ask questions. If I had to give too many directions, it was just like I had to spoon feed them versus someone who asked me what I needed. And
Mm,
that helped me clarify it for myself and for them, like what the roles were. And it showed me that they were willing to take charge of what they needed to do, not just in terms of the work, but also their role in our relationship. So I think that speaks volumes.
yeah. And then the third piece that's important with delegating, this isn't necessarily what to look for, although maybe you can add this, but it's coachability. Because once you delegate, especially if it's the first couple of projects, you don't just delegate and peace out. You're going to delegate and coach and guide. You're not going to tell them how to, but this is when the whole leader as a coach becomes crucial, is how are you supporting them in that delegation? They aren't supporting you. Now you're supporting them so they can be successful in doing that. Sometimes when we're so busy, we delegate because we want to focus on other things. But this is an opportunity to really develop your people, and you don't want to miss that chance. And if they are not coachable, good way of telling if they're coachable is you go back to your crucial conversations. And if whenever you give them feedback, if it goes to silence or violence instead of acknowledgement and seeing what they can do to be better next time, that would be someone who's not coachable.
Right. And it's vital to a business to form those relationships, very early on, because the stronger they get, the stronger your business is going to be,
Right.
right?
Yep. And the more you're freed up to do the things you actually love. Because
Exactly.
if you don't delegate, you're going to be like that person doing your numbers. You're in Excel hating it, right? Or you're doing all of your marketing, but you're only 50% effective because you only know enough versus being an expert.
And you know what? I learned a really valuable lesson when I hired a team to do some ads for me. And then I was watching this guy just absolutely, like, it blew me away, the amount of information he knew and how up to speed he was, up to date with everything that was going on as far as like the Facebook marketing was going. And I'm sitting over here thinking, oh, I know a lot. I'm just,
Yeah.
I can knock it out of the park. And then he was talking about like so many variables that in my wildest dreams, I really couldn't put together. But, again, I think as leaders, we need to know where, like, enough is good to delegate, but also when we need to stop pushing to grow in a certain direction, because there are people who specialize in that and that can do a much better job.
Yeah, you also make me think the importance of allowing others to shine around you.
Oh, huge.
Because I think some leaders sometimes always want to be the star or the center.
Mhm.
Whereas when you actually bring people part of your team that are just crushing it in their field of expertise, that only actually makes you look better, even though you aren't the one shining and they are.
Agreed.
And
Agreed. And
ultimately, it's
get
even
ego out
better
of
for
the
your
way.
customers. What's that?
I said, and get the ego out of the way.
Yep, exactly. Because if you're truly dedicated to serving your customers, you're going to be serving them at much higher levels because of that.
Absolutely.
Another way you can serve at higher levels is to join our Facebook group for People, Purpose, and Profits Business Coaching. We post every episode every week, and you have the opportunity to interact with Coach Kat or Coach Brian, me, and we get to talk about how do we apply these. We give you some tips, but this is only scratching the surface. And you also get to interact with other audience members who are leaders just like you, who are also trying to figure out how to play at the top of their game, to play at levels that you only dreamed of. And so that community is designed to be able to help your success. You can also watch us on YouTube or listen to us on your podcatcher of choice. So from Kat and I, we are excited that you've been here and that you continue to learn from us every week, every episode. And we look forward to seeing you next time.
See you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.